Good morning, PTI Nice Daily Show. Happy Friday morning. Hope your Friday's off to a great start this morning. Almost to the weekend. My name is Alan. I'll be your host today. COO of ICE, faculty member for our Fitness Athlete Division here on the best day of the week, Fitness Athlete Friday. Hope your week is going well. Hope you saw our new course announcement launch Wednesday night. We launched Modern Management of the Older Adult Advanced Concepts. So folks have been asking for a deeper dive into all things older adult. So Dustin and Christina have created a second online course that will follow up the Essential Foundations course that will deal a lot more with neurological conditions and treatments, as well as cardiovascular, getting deeper into balance, getting more into the master's athlete, and also how to start to create and develop programs in your clinic, in your community, to help market programs to those folks and really start to come alongside the older adult in your community. So check that out if you haven't yet. Modern Managing the Older Adult Advanced Concepts. As far as courses go, we're almost done for the year. Jeff is in Asheville, North Carolina this weekend for cervical spine management. That course has been sold out since the summer, so too bad, so sad, missed that one. I will be heading down here, leaving momentarily to go to the gym and then get down to the airport and catch a flight down to South Carolina to catch Jordan Berry teaching lumbar spine management in Florence, South Carolina. If you're in the Charlotte area, in the Columbia, South Carolina area, that's a shortish drive for you if you want to come catch us in Florence this weekend. Other than that, that's the end of live courses for the year. Everything is starting up again in the new year, so check out ptnice.com. Check out all the online courses starting right after the new year, and then our live courses starting the weekend of January 11th. So let's get into the nuts and bolts today of what we're talking about. We're talking about this article that came out at the beginning of the week or the end of last week. I can't remember. It's called To Flex or Not Flex is the relationship between lumbar spine flexion during lifting and low back pain, and it's a systematic review with meta-analysis by Peter O'Sullivan and colleagues from Down Under in Australia. And so this article has kind of made its way around social media over the past few days with folks arguing about it, as they tend to do on Twitter and Instagram and elsewhere, because of the conclusion. So we're going to talk about this article. We're going to talk about what this article is getting at and what this article might mean or not mean. So first things first, before we get anywhere else, this is a really good example of why you absolutely must know how to read research, interpret research, and read the full paper. A lot of folks are just pulling a lot and drawing a lot of conclusions from the abstract and not getting into the methods, not getting into the discussion that the researchers took a long time to do and did a very good job at describing their methods, describing the research that they evaluated, the quality, all that sort of stuff. So really good example of why you absolutely must read the full text. I think we do a good job here at ICE of giving you the links and the DOI numbers to get the full text or try to get the full text of articles when we share research. We try to share a piece of research every day on Instagram and Facebook. So you must get comfortable reading and interpreting research and not just going from the abstract. That's not a way to apply research, and certainly taking the conclusion from one article is not conclusive. It is not determinate. It is just more research in support or against a particular hypothesis. So we have to understand how to interpret research. If you don't have a ResearchGate account yet, get a ResearchGate account. It's free if you are a licensed healthcare provider. 99.9% of the time, the authors of a paper are on ResearchGate, and you can type in the name of a paper and click download. It's usually uploaded, and if it's not, you can click request it. It will send a message to that research group, and 9 times out of 10, they will send you the PDF of the article. So in this day and age, it's really easy to get full text. I know it can be expensive to be a member of the APTA or a member of the NSCA, and it can certainly be absolutely impossible to try and buy articles one by one. They're like $75 each, but that ResearchGate is a quick, free way legally to get pretty much all the research you might want. So we have to read the full paper. Speaking of reading the full paper, let's dive deep into it. So the conclusion of this article is what hit a lot of people, but they did not stop and actually read the paper. So this systematic review and meta-analysis is looking at what is the relationship between a flexed lumbar spine and low back pain? Is there a relationship? They looked at a couple different studies and concluded low quality evidence that greater lumbar spine flexion during lifting was not a risk factor for low back pain onset or persistence, and not a differentiator of people with and without low back pain. So people only read the abstract, they read that conclusion, and they said, great, no rules. None of the rules apply anymore. We can lift as much as we want with a rounded back. It doesn't matter about getting your back flat. It doesn't matter about having a perfect deadlift. This paper says it doesn't matter how flexed your back is. It won't cause low back pain, it won't make low back pain worse, and it has no relationship with low back pain. And that is absolutely not what this paper is saying at all. This paper is saying of the research that they evaluated, they did not find much of a difference with people lifting with a flexed low back or not. But they go much, much deeper than that, and it's important to look at the methods and look at the discussion. So when we break that down and start to look at the methods, we see that they looked at a ton of studies, and of 2,289 studies, they were only satisfied and happy with 13 of those being of quality enough to even look at and of meeting their inclusion criteria. And of that, in those 13 studies, there were only 697 patients total. So better sample size than most PT research. We see a lot of conclusions drawn from sample sizes of 3 and 4 and 5 people sometimes in PT research. So this is better, but again, not perfect. And when we start to get into the meat of this paper, we find that when they're looking at these papers, they found on average that folks with low back pain had 6 degrees less lumbar flexion than folks without low back pain, although there was a lot of heterogeneity in the research. And then if we dig even deeper, we find that in 7 of those 13 studies, they did not actually have an accurate way to measure lumbar flexion. And that in general, the study populations were poorly described, generally including an absence of recruitment data, ambiguous inclusion criteria of the low back pain group, and no disability measures for the low back pain group. So we're not sure how much pain difference there was, how much disability difference there was, or even what inclusion or exclusion criteria were used for these folks. Getting even deeper, right here, the summary of the evidence in the discussion. We rate the overall quality of the current body of evidence in this review as low. The methodological quality of studies was low, significant statistical heterogeneity. No included study, although showed an unequivocal effect for lifting with a more flexed lumbar position being associated with low back pain. Getting a little bit deeper into this paper, and then we'll stop and have a discussion. Of the papers they looked at, lifting frequencies did not occur of greater than 25 lifts per day or regular lifting over 25 kilograms. And they go on to say participants in the study lifted weights between a pen and a 12 kilogram box, representing less than maximal advised loads for manual workers of up to 23 kilograms. So of the studies they looked at, the methods were poor, or the overall quality was poor, and they say themselves, the researchers did a really good job of explaining in the results in the discussion and in their methods that these folks were not lifting heavy and they were not lifting frequently. They were lifting less than 25 lifts a day of loads between a pen and 12 kilos, so about 25 pounds. So not heavy for most folks, especially those folks who are doing a lot of manual labor, that UPS driver lifting 50-pound packages on and off the truck for Christmas. That person would not have been in this study. Getting a little bit deeper in here, and then we'll stop. Clinical implications. What they're getting at here is that at low loads and low frequencies, it doesn't really seem to matter if we lift with a bent lumbar spine, if we have some rounding in our low back, if we have some lumbar flexion. And really, if you know anything about Peter O'Sullivan and his colleagues, they really dig into the research and kind of the patient perspective of negative beliefs about low back pain and fear of movement. And where they're trying to go with this paper is we cannot tell people to never bend over again, that it's okay to bend over. It's okay to bend over and pick up low loads at low frequencies. We know this intuitively. We do this all day long. We talk about this a lot in the fitness athlete courses of why do we care so much about the deadlift? Because we deadlift, we hip hinge, we bend over and pick up stuff all day long. So it's important that we know how to do it, and we have a really strong movement pattern there because we do it so often. Every time you bend over and pick up your kid, you pick up your dog, you bend over and tie your shoes, you pick up a jug of water, you are bending over and picking up. And yes, it is okay at low loads, submaximal loads, that your back is rounded. But some folks on social media have taken this to the extreme and saying it doesn't matter that we deadlift with a low back anymore. It's okay to do super heavy loaded Jefferson curls where you intentionally lift with the rounded low back. There is some merit to that. There is some merit to introducing lifting with a little bit of round in your back to decrease fear around bending over. That's something we absolutely have to get people over, is what Justin Dunaway here at ICE calls flexiphobia, is getting over bending your back. We have to show people it's okay to bend their back. It's okay to bend over and pick up their back and not be worried about bracing their spine, especially just to bend over and pick up your shoe. That's okay. But that being said, that's not how we instruct lifting, especially if we're going to be lifting high volume, high intensity, high loads, or any combination, or all three of those. We have to be more rigid, and we can't take this paper and say no rules apply anymore. It's okay to lift whatever you want with a rounded back. That will probably result in folks being more injured, especially here from our viewpoint when we talk about fitness athletes and we're instructing folks in the deadlift and taking them through deadlifting in the clinic and in the gym as coaches. We have to not take this paper and say it doesn't matter that people have perfect mechanics. Yes, we don't always expect perfect mechanics, especially under high loads. We call that the speed wobble from NASCAR. If you're a NASCAR fan, I'm not, but we steal that example from NASCAR anyways. If you are the slowest driver on the course, you will never win the race, right? If you never challenge your spine and push to your chain with a heavier deadlift, you will probably always be able to show a mechanically sound deadlift because you're never lifting anywhere close to your threshold. Conversely, if you are the person that drives so fast that you wreck your car every race, you're also not going to win a race. So if you're that person who maxes out the bar every time and lifts with super poor technique and a lot of lumbar flexion, you're probably that person that has pain with deadlifts and has to take days or weeks off from deadlifting every time you deadlift. So those are two ends of the spectrum. We need to meet in the middle. We need to train near our max. We need to do max out days sometimes. We need to do 3-rep max days. We just did a 3-rep max here at the gym last week, and challenge our mechanics. And yes, under super heavy loads, we aren't expecting perfect mechanics, and that adds in exposure to folks, and they get exposure to lifting with a little bit of rounding in their back, and that makes them that much more robust, but we aren't actively encouraging that. We expect it to happen under heavy loads, under heavy volume, under high intensity, any combination of those, but we aren't encouraging it. We're always hammering folks for good mechanics, not only for safety, but also because it's maximizes performance. When you are in a perfect deadlift mechanical position, you're going to be able to lift more weight than you can without. You don't see people breaking world records with the Jefferson curl. It simply doesn't happen. You see them doing it with conventional deadlift and sumo deadlift with near perfect mechanics, and that's how it goes. So we can't take this article and say rules don't apply anymore to exercising with the low back or loading the low back. Yes, we expect to see it under high loads and intensities. We're trying to coach and correct it out if we can and make sure it's just not a neuromotor fault, and that it actually is because we are challenging that person's capacity so much, but we aren't actively encouraging it. And if we look to other research, if we go back to 2012 and around that time frame and look at research from Stu McGill and colleagues, we know that this article here says we expect to see a 6-degree variance in lumbar flexion, and it doesn't seem to be correlated with low back pain. We kind of already know we expect to see some motion of lumbar spine from McGill's research showing up to a 20-degree variance in lumbar spine motion with squats and deadlifts as the spine moves from extension to neutral to flexion and back in those movements. So we know we cannot maintain 0 degrees of movement in the lumbar spine. It's just not anatomically possible. There's that variance that happens anyways. So 6 degrees is not nearly as much variance as we expect to see, as McGill and colleagues showed. But that being said, McGill and colleagues also showed us what is actually happening with a deadlift, where we are getting an anterior shear across the spine if our posterior chain and lats and paraspinals aren't maximally engaged because of all the other forces at play. The pull of the weight itself from the bar pulling, anterior ligamentous force from our spinal ligaments pulling, and compression as well through the spine. The only thing resisting all that is the muscular force of our posterior chain of our glutes, our paraspinals, pulling back against that weight. So for safety and for performance, we need to have those muscles engaged. When we don't engage those muscles, whether because the weight on the bar is more than those muscles can counteract, or because we are willingly doing a rounded back motion, then we have to make sure that the weight on that bar isn't greater than the capacity of those muscles, or we know we're at increased risk for injury. So yes, we do train Jefferson curls. I love to give Jefferson curls with a light kettlebell to folks. That is a great primer prior to a deadlift to warm up your hamstrings, do some neural flossing. But I am not giving somebody a 124-pound kettlebell Jefferson curl. I'm giving them a 13-pound kettlebell Jefferson curl because I know that is way, way, way below their max capacity. I know that they can Jefferson curl that thing all day long and warm up and not be at risk for their back. I am not having them do a 3-rep max deadlift Jefferson curl style because we know if we don't have those muscles engaged, it's just not going to be enough to counteract all the different forces happening at the spine. So we have to be careful with interpretation of research like this. Yes, we don't want people to be afraid of bending over and picking up stuff. We want them to get stronger with bending over and picking up stuff so that in their daily life, when they bend over and pick up stuff, it doesn't hurt their back. It doesn't give them back pain. So what you should take from this research is that it is okay under low loads and low volumes to bend over and pick up stuff, to pick up a pen, to pick up even a 25-pound box if your capacity is there. How do we get the capacity there? We train those muscles. We train those muscles by incorporating solid deadlift mechanics. Even if you have patients that can't show you a good barbell deadlift or a sumo barbell deadlift, we can get them kettlebell deadlifting. We can get them doing banded pull-throughs. We talk about this a lot in our essentials course and also at our live course of the infinite variations that we can load up somebody's back and posterior chain in ways that don't even look like a deadlift, in ways that don't even involve a barbell, so we can train those muscles so that it increases that person's capacity so that they can go throughout their daily life and bend over and pick up stuff with a little bit of rounding in their back and not have back pain. So as with most things in life, it's and not or. It's not full lockout, fully braced is the only way to pick something up, or no rules apply, don't care about mechanics, bend over and pick up whatever you want, as much as you want, at whatever volume you want, at whatever intensity you want, because some paper said that it was okay. The researchers, if you read the full paper, admit and tell you that there are limitations, the main one being that these folks performed low load, low volume in the study, did not lift as much or lift as often as some folks do. So keep all that in mind. Again, if you get nothing else from my insane rambling for the past 20 minutes and venting, please, please, please be the person that reads the whole paper before you jump to any conclusion. Read the methods, read the discussion. There's a lot in there, 99.9% of the time. There's more important stuff in those sections than what gets put on the abstract. You should only be using the abstract to say, is this paper relevant to my patient population? Is this paper something that I want to try and track down the full version of? You should not be looking at the abstract and jumping to any sort of conclusive determination about anything. It should lead you to want to look at the full paper or not, but not jump to a conclusion from it. So keep all that in mind. So I hope that helps. Would love to hear a discussion on this. I know people get fired up about this. People start posting videos, Jefferson curl on 225 pounds. Look at me. My spine is strong. I can Jefferson curl 225. And other people fire back with world record deadlifts at 1,000 pounds with a fully flat back, and it kind of goes downhill from there. But would love to hear any discussion you all have about this. I think it's a really important topic, a really important line of research that we get into, and a really important thing that we understand as PTs, that it's okay at low loads and low volume to bend over and lift with the rounded back, but also to understand how to maximally perform things like the deadlift and what that looks like mechanic-wise. If you have no idea what that looks like, if you're just listening in, we'd love to have you jump into the next cohort of Essential Foundations in January. We talk a lot about this. We have an entire week dedicated to the deadlift and the literature behind the deadlift, and we also talk about it at the live course as well. So we'd love to have you come join us in January in Chicago or later on in the year as well. So give that a thought. Let that roll around your mind a little bit. Feel free to throw your discussion on here on Facebook or on Instagram, or send us a message or email. We'd love to chat further. That's what I've got for you all. Have a great weekend. If you're going to be in South Carolina, I will see you there. I'm excited to get down and do lumbar management with Jordan. So have a great weekend. I'll see you all next time. Bye, everybody.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.